The Able to Care podcast is sponsored by Able Training Support Limited, who build partnerships with organisations to develop confidence and competence in their team to promote positive outcomes for all. Find the link in the description. Hello and welcome to the Able to Care podcast. I'm your host, Andy Baker, and I've got two very special guests with me today. So I've got Julia and Elizabeth, who are the hosts on a Good Day podcast, 31 episodes in so far and counting. And the two of them met sharing a very similar experience, but I won't kind of jump in and take over. I'll let them introduce themselves. So first off, thank you very much for joining me and welcome to the show. So say hello.
My name's Julia, the co-host of On a Good Day. And my husband had a subarachnoid brain hemorrhage 15 years ago. And talking about all things brain injury from our perspective as partners and carers is the point of our podcast.
Hi, Andy. Thank you so much for having us on. So I'm Elizabeth, the other half of On a Good Day podcast. And my husband had a stroke 6 years ago now. And that was just completely life-changing for us. And undoubtedly, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty at some point. But Julia and I were connected by a mutual friend, and it was just so heartwarming and wonderful to have somebody that I could talk to that really understood what I was going through. Because a brain injury doesn't just affect that person, it affects the whole family and friends, and it really does have a ripple effect on kind of the whole community. And there are certain nuances that you know, people who live with someone who have a brain injury kind of get. And so we chatted and kind of came up with the idea to start a podcast. And because we wanted to share what we were learning along our journey, to share our experiences as well, to call on specialist guests to find out as much as we could about brain injury, about recovery, about the effect that it has on friends and family. And to be honest, it's actually been a bit of therapy for us, certainly for me as well, because talking about these experiences and talking to other people who've been through something similar and that was another aim of the podcast, was to help other people feel less alone and understood. And I think, you know, that's a big thing in any kind of situation, but to understand, to be understood. So that was, and, you know, I think we are achieving it to an extent. So yeah, thank you for having us on, Andy.
Oh, that's my pleasure. And thank you very much for sharing a little bit about your story. So as far as I think both of you were slightly further or in different places when you first met then. So, you know, it was it quite early that you two connected as far as the journey, as you know, as your husbands became ill, that you started chatting, or is it a while in?
Yeah, it was a while in. Our mutual friend put Elizabeth in touch with me. And I guess that was maybe 5 years ago. And my children were a similar age. Actually, they're a tiny bit older than Elizabeth's were when Hector had his brain injury. My children were 5 and 10, which actually is a similar age to one of your children now, isn't it, Elizabeth? One of your lovely daughters. So we have shared that journey of having young children, but my children are now quite a lot older. My daughter's 24 and my son is 19. So, yeah, we're a bit further along through that journey.
And that was quite good in a way, because I felt like Julia was a bit of the oracle on lots of things. So she already had been through a lot of the stages, so I could really pick her brains about certain things. And also it brings different dimensions to our conversations as well. So yeah, it had been a couple of years since Paul had his brain injury when we first started talking. And it's been 6 years now since he's had it.
Yeah, so obviously after, it was a stroke you said for Paul, Elizabeth, wasn't it? Yeah, so what did he do before? What's the situation now? What's been the major change for you, if you wouldn't mind sharing that?
So my husband Paul has quite a complicated health journey, if I'm honest, because the stroke was born out of another medical complication. So kind of going back 12 years ago, really, Paul was, at the time I was pregnant with my first child, my first daughter, and he hadn't been feeling very well. Didn't go to the doctor like a lot of men. Eventually did, and he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, stage 4 cancer. So he had chemotherapy, and thankfully it's one of those curable ones. But for many people, as many people know who've had cancer, chemotherapy is great at killing the cancer to an extent, but it also kills a lot of healthy cells as well. And what we didn't know at the time, but which we would find out after several near escapes, he's died a few times and come back to life, thankfully, in very dramatic circumstances. But we soon found out that his immunity was massively impacted. He actually had to have 2 heart valve replacements. That was in 2015. He then got sick again and had to have another double heart valve replacement, emergency, 10-hour operation. Was not looking good for him at all. And then somewhere along the way, he had a stroke. So it wasn't one of those, I guess, conventional ways that a lot of people would have a stroke. They'd have those symptoms. I mean, he was having symptoms when it was a bacterial infection that kind of went to his heart. But it was nonetheless a huge, huge shock. And at the time, you just don't know what it means. And at the time, actually, he was fighting for his life anyway. He was in intensive care for at least 6 weeks. And we were focused on getting him through and him surviving. So it wasn't until when he woke up that we really could see the effects of the stroke. It was a very large stroke on his right-hand side of his brain, which affects his left-hand side. And he did wake up and he couldn't do a lot of things. So, and has had to, learn to walk again, learn to talk again. Huge, aphasia, dyspraxia, lots of cognitive difficulties. So that was 6 years ago. And to look at him now, we were literally just talking about it because he was telling somebody that had come over. She wasn't quite expecting the life story, but she got it. And I have to say, that's one good, he's got lots of good things, but one of the real positives is that he will talk about what's happened to him, and his speech, even though it is disrupted, it's not always linear. He likes to talk. And it's, the fact that he can do that is incredible, because we weren't given much hope, for starters, that he would be able to. But looking back, it's incredible, really, the achievements that he's had. And I just said to him, look, you've just got to remember, and be grateful for where you are now. But that's quite a very long version of kind of my situation. But yes, and we've got 2 children now, and they were 5 and 1 at the time, so very little. So I was very busy, trying to juggle their emotions and what was going on with them. I mean, I largely tried to keep things going as much as possible. They were still going to school and all that. And then Paul was in hospital for 11 months, pretty much. So he had a long stint, 5 months in rehab. First of all, he was in kind of a hospital. Then he got moved to Queen Square, where he got intensive rehab. until he came home. And then that was a whole other situation. But I will let Julia share her story now, because I feel like I've been talking for a long time.
No, that was amazing. And thank you so much for sharing. And say that does sound, it's a little bit different from what most people typically think of, kind of as just an acquired brain injury, the stroke happens, you don't have any lead-in warning, whereas yours does sound like a very different journey, that poorly, new type of poorly again. So yeah, it does sound slightly different. So thank you for that. So please, Julia, tell me about Hector and the situation that you guys went through.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. We were living in Nigeria at the time, and both Hector and I were working. We had our 2 young children with us there, and it was really completely out of the blue. One night, Hector was out. We were out socially. He started to complain of a bad headache and went home early, and I joined him later at home. And then in the middle of the night, he got up, went to the bathroom. So before that, said something that was, didn't really make sense. And I said, "Oh, what did you say?" And then he got up and went to the bathroom and vomited, which was very, very unusual for him. And I heard a crash as well, and basically he collapsed on the floor and was immediately showing signs of not being able to get up. He couldn't raise himself. His face was starting to drop, and I realized that something pretty catastrophic had happened, and thought that it was a stroke. It turned out that it was a subarachnoid brain hemorrhage. And what then happened was that I had to go out in the middle of the night and try and find some healthcare, a doctor, and went to one clinic and was unable to find a doctor that would come to the house. And the second clinic, I did find someone that was able to bring an ambulance out, because there wasn't a 999 facility. And the ambulance came to the house, followed me back to the house. And at that stage, Hector was then carried downstairs into the ambulance. And we took him to a clinic, and he had an MRI scan. And it was the MRI scan that showed the bleed on the brain, and that then kicked in the insurance that we had, the medical insurance that alerted the need for some, healthcare that would be available outside of the country. So that was on the Saturday morning. A plane and a doctor arrived on the Sunday morning. So Hector had, 24 hours plus of really not much oxygen in Nigeria. And then I remember when the doctor arrived, the doctor said, "I have to go and have a sleep first." And I could see Hector was fading away. And I was like, "No, you can't go to sleep. What do you mean? You need to go and see Hector." And he said, "If I don't go and sleep, I won't be able to do what I need to get him home." So that was probably the worst time, actually, because Hector had really deteriorated over that time. And however, the doctor went to the clinic, stabilized Hector enough to travel. He went out on a medical plane, and it was in fact our mutual friend, that was with me in Nigeria then, and helped with that medevac and some of the licenses for the plane to land and that kind of thing. So it was all terribly dramatic in many ways. And Hector was flown back to Addenbrooke's in Cambridge, which is our local hospital. We live just outside Cambridge. He was there for 5 months and was in a coma for 6 weeks. And I flew back after the plane landed on the Monday morning with Hector, and I arrived in the afternoon with the children. And that was it, really. We were then based here, and the journey just started.
It sounds like it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So did you guys, either of you, know much about brain injury or anything before this, or is this has it been a very steep learning curve? Because I know, Elizabeth, you used a few phrases in there like aphasia and asphyxia and things like that. So it's a case of, obviously you've learned a lot. So what did you know before, and what do you know now?
Didn't know a great deal before. My granny actually had a stroke, so I did get a slight glimpse of what it was like, but it's very different when a kind of an 80-year-old has a stroke to when, my husband was 38 when he had his stroke. So yes, very steep learning curve. Didn't really know a lot, but have certainly learned a great deal, not least the impact of living with somebody who has a stroke. And that is the steepest learning curve, isn't it, Julia?
Absolutely. And I think that for me, I sort of went from really knowing nothing to feeling that I could probably perform brain surgery, actually. Also, Hector has aphasia and a right side weakness. So I could probably fancy myself as a speech therapist and occupational therapist as well. So I think it's not only some of the medical terms, but also those sort of engaging with a whole range of services that I'd really never had contact with before, and actually including social services as well. So I think it's been a hugely steep learning curve, one I'm still on. I also went to work for Headway, so that increased my knowledge base again. And I think doing the podcast really has increased that learning as well, actually. I don't know if you agree with that, Elizabeth.
Oh, 100%. So much of what I've learned has come from us recording the podcast. Absolutely. And not just from the experts, but all stroke survivors or brain injury survivors we've had on, because everybody's different. Every brain injury is so different and impacts people in different ways. And how they deal with it and how their families deal with it is all, kind of the same, but a little bit different as well.
I think another really exciting reminder that I have with the podcast is how much is still unknown and how much through research is becoming known. I mean, there are some parts of that we're very, maybe increasingly familiar with the gut brain interaction and so on, that's becoming more talked about, but neuroplasticity and all of those areas of research which are absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, neuroregenesis and things like that, isn't it? Where actually, new skills can be learned if it's presented in the right way. So, as far as have you done the research yourself? Have you had a lot of support kind of professionally in this? As you said, a lot's come from the podcast, and it sounds like through conversations and meeting specialists and people with lived experience that's helped. But yeah, what's the support been like for both of you?
It's not been hugely far-reaching from my part. I think from our hospital point of view, it was very much about Paul and getting him better. There was some signposting to things, but at the time, you're just not really even taking it in. The fact that he was being discharged and still couldn't do so many things, he wasn't able to walk out down the street on his own. He didn't know what things in our house were. He said, can you go to the fridge? He didn't know what a fridge was. It's really difficult to explain, but there were so many things that he just cognitively just didn't get. So I was quite overwhelmed with all of that, and so it's certainly to start with. So it's only been later that I've started to reach out to some of the support, and actually some of the charities, that's mainly where we've got the support from, have just been amazing. Julia mentioned Headway, that obviously she used to work for. We've got a local charity that has been brilliant with Paul, giving courses and so forth, and also some support for the carers as well. So It's kind of reaching out and searching for it, I suppose. But also a lot of knowledge has come from the therapists that would visit us in the community at home. And, particularly the occupational therapist, which, as Julia mentioned before, we are basically occupational therapists, aren't we? Because it's just teaching them to do the everyday things. And sometimes that can be really hard when it's your husband or your partner. And I do struggle with that, I have to say. It's much easier when there's somebody else helping. I don't know if you'd agree, Julia.
Yes, I think that the question that you asked, Andy, about what support I've had, I think, like many people in my situation, it took me a long time to use the word carer. Elizabeth and I talk about this ourselves, and it's not necessarily a word that you like to use, Elizabeth, is it? But it is one that I do use, maybe less frequently than I did, but I certainly went through a process of identifying as a carer, and that I did find unlocked support that I hadn't previously been aware of. And I think many people don't realise that they are unpaid carers, and the distinction between paid carers and unpaid carers, I think, is an important one. But I became engaged in a carers forum in Cambridgeshire just for a short while, and felt that I had something to contribute to that. But then, as Hector made some progress, many of the people involved were in different situations where there wasn't going to be progress. In fact, it was a deterioration of the person they were caring for, and I felt that it was time to move on from that. But through that time that I was involved and I attended some carers groups, I found it really helpful. I think one of the biggest missing parts for me was in that early crisis stage. And I think it's quite complicated because it's maybe the time when you're really seeking or feeling that you need some help or some support, outside support, some professional support. But also it's a time when there's most going on and it's most difficult to seek that out, know where to look. There's so much information, so much, for me, at that time, looking after the children, trying to get them into a new school, so much on that it's then difficult to take that time that you might want to or need to invest to get some of that help in place. I also think that there are a lack of services for psychological support after brain injury, and there are specific needs that are different from just general counselling, which we know is overstretched anyway. But I think some of those specialisms, specialist areas can be difficult to access. I did have one session, an hour, with a fully trained psychiatrist who wasn't a counsellor, which was incredibly useful. And actually, it was through my job that I left behind in Nigeria, and VSO were wonderful. And just in that hour, the person that I spoke to allowed me to talk about what happened and labelled it as trauma. And I think I would never have realised that it had been a trauma. I would never have used that word, certainly at that point. And again, I think it's a word certainly that I hear used more frequently now, and more recognition of that. But I think being able to identify what I had been through as a very traumatic episode enabled me to process it. So it was hugely valuable for me at that time.
I think often the recognition of trauma does come later. And like you say, it's not something you necessarily identify with initially, and you're just going with the flow. You're kind of in that action-based, slightly denial phase. And for me, it certainly hit all at once, probably about 3 years down the line, certainly. So it was a hugely delayed response where it was suddenly like, okay, this is really, really changed things. But also just picking up on the support aspect, although I haven't had tons of professional support. I've had so much support from friends and family who have been hugely understanding and who really rallied, particularly in that time of crisis. So I just wanted to mention, don't be afraid for anybody listening to ask for that help, because people do want to help, and it can be really hard to ask. So a lot of the time I just had people saying, I'm coming around and looking after Paul while you can go out and do such and such with the girls. So actually there was, the girls used to have swimming lessons every Sunday. So they did a rotation of, right, such and such is coming over and we'll do some ironing with Paul. And I was like, oh gosh, good luck, trying to do some kind of activity with him, or we'll do some cooking. And actually it was great for them to get that insight of what I was dealing with on a daily basis. And they kind of had that for an hour or two. And I think it really helped them be able to help in realize how to support us as a family in various ways. So actually I think that's a really great tip to, have somebody come over and help them and get an insight into what it's like.
Yes, of course, I would echo that as well, and widen it out to the support we've had from our community and our wider community, as well as family and friends. And we certainly wouldn't have been able to live life in the way we have over the last 15 years without that support. It's been amazing.
That's really positive to hear. And I think it's sometimes very easy to get caught in the kind of almost the tragedy of it, isn't it? And it sounds like there's some, or already I'm starting peeking a little bit to the positive that come out the other side, that maybe it's drawn family closer to you in some ways and community closer to you, and finding each other as well, which is also nice. There's a few things that were mentioned from both of you there that I found really quite impactful, and I think so I just want to kind of touch on those a little bit. It was one thing that you mentioned, Elizabeth, initially, that, although there was some professional support, it was kind of offered immediately and you weren't ready for it at that point because it was the kind of the whirlwind of everything that was going on, the sudden realization and stuff. And I don't think I've ever thought of that before, because I've always wondered, there is so much support, there is so many charities that are out there, but, why do people feel so overwhelmed in these circumstances? And I suppose it's forgetting that in that moment, suddenly your whole world is changing. And even just moving house for most people is the most kind of trauma they're going to experience in life. When we know that's one of the most stressful things you can ever do. So, that realization of that really difficult changing time, but that's when they're wanting you to kind of tell you everything that you should and shouldn't be doing. That was quite interesting. So, do we want to expand on that at all? And Julia, was that the same for you as well? That straight afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a confusing time because everything changed, and for us, we moved country, children changed schools, Hector was in a hospital, our routine changed. We were living with my mom, so yeah, every aspect of life had changed, and I certainly wasn't used to asking for help in the way that I then had to, or even accepting it. So that was again a really big shift in mentality to just admit that I really needed the help. So yes, I think that point of crisis is one that kind of becomes blurred with time, but actually I think it's very difficult to manage everything then. And I remember saying, well, what about the school uniform the children need? I've got to go and get school uniform. And my sister just said, it's okay, I will go and do that, I'll sort, you don't need to worry about that. So, that's something that still sticks in my head, that I was worrying about school uniform for the kids. So yeah, I think it's difficult to gain that perspective at the time. So having a measured conversation about how you're feeling at that point in time is quite difficult.
I suppose that's quite a part of the trauma response, isn't it? That, trauma doesn't, most people think of PTSD as something almost kicking in immediately. The event occurs and you suffer PTSD straight afterwards. But actually you were probably still survival mode. You kicked into survival mode straight after the actual incident. And it isn't until later down the pathway that suddenly, it kicks in, it hits that, now I'm struggling.
Andy, you're absolutely right. you are in survival, you're in denial. You've got to keep going. I had 2 young kids. I had to get them to school. I had to look after them, go and see Paul at the hospital, as much as I could, and dealing with him coming home and, dealing with life. And yeah, you do just keep going. You keep going, you keep going. And I have a friend, and I remember there was this one point where I was like, oh my God, I can't, it had really started to hit me. And she was just sat me down and she said, I've been expecting this. I've been waiting and I've been waiting and I knew it was going to come, and it's okay. This is totally normal for it to happen. It's just taken you a really long time for it to all sink in and finally hit. So it happens to different people, to different people at different times, but you need it to hit at some point, I think.
Thank you for listening to the Able to Care podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, comment, and share. We really appreciate all of you listeners. Can I just touch on, obviously, I think Julia mentioned your dislike of the word carer, and I think I understand that, Elizabeth, but I just wondered if you wouldn't mind just expanding on that.
Yeah, I guess you have certain connotations as a carer, of this carer sort of identity, and it's certainly not something I identify with. And I guess partly because Paul can now do quite a lot of things independently. And he wouldn't like me being described as like, I can look after myself, this, that, and the other. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about that, because I don't feel that I do. It's not like it's that traditional, I've got to wash him, I've got to get him out of bed. I'm not doing any of that physical stuff. Like, he can do all of that now. And he could fairly quickly. He learned a lot of that in hospital, thankfully. So it really is the cognitive side of things, the little things that he might not understand, or he's trying to do something on the computer, or he needs to communicate to the bank or something and can't quite do it in the right way. So there's some, I just don't feel I do enough caring, I suppose, in inverted commas, to kind of deserve that title in a way. Because I do, and because he is fairly independent, and I'm back at work now. I took quite a lot of time off to look after him. I suppose that is slightly caring in a way. And the children, it wasn't just him, it was the children, to have some stability for them. And so I'm not around a lot of the time, and now he's kind of looking after the kids more, which has been great for him. But yeah, I don't know if you want to jump in, Julia. You can probably see things from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, I guess I just see the definition as very wide. I think that distinction between paid and unpaid is important, but as an unpaid carer, I think it's a very wide definition, and I support Hector with a lot of communication needs with his aphasia, both, in speaking and conversation and written work as well. He struggles to read and write. So, that's certainly an aspect that I give that support to him. One particular aspect. So that seems to be the available term that is most used, that people would understand. So I guess that's why I use it, not necessarily because I think I'm more caring for him than I was as a wife, or that I'm not a wife, I'm now his carer. But I think it's a term that people in the system understand as well, I guess. And I think I certainly did find it useful when it unlocked some of that support when I needed it. So that's where I see the advantage of it. And, organisations like Carers Together, Carers UK, that do offer support, unless, of course, you don't have to call yourself a carer to be in touch with them. But I think you maybe only find those organisations if you start to identify or use that term, whatever it means to you. So I would just take the definition wider and I agree with you, Elizabeth. I think often it is thought of as personal care because of paid carer roles. But I do think it's wider than that. So that's why I use it.
And I guess it's up to us to redefine that, I suppose, by sharing our experiences.
Definitely. So the reason I kind of asked that, so I think that's where I kind of thought the story was, as you said, it's that definitional, I don't do the thing that paid carers typically tend to do. Obviously, again, working within that remit, paid carers don't all provide personal care depending on the setting they're in. But I remember when I was kind of supporting my mum, she was looking for additional support from social services and things like that. She was kind of, well, they're asking me how much kind of I put in or how much work. She said, well, I only go down for a couple of hours every day. And I said, okay, so what would happen if Gran fell in the night? What would happen if you got a phone call at any point in the day? Are you constantly on call? Can you at the minute go away and go do anything else without setting things up to be able to look after your mum? And therefore, although you're only putting down your duty hours, I would say actually you're caring 24/7. You're just on call. But if you're on call in a job, then you'd still be working. You still have to be compensated. And I think that's where, not necessarily the term, but I think the context, you are now relied on more than you ever were before to some degree or another. But as I thought you'd go down the more the route of I'm still a wife, and obviously that's a big part of your identity, that it doesn't need to be your sole identity being a carer. But yeah, that was one thing that I kind of found with my mum, kind of not realizing how much she was actually doing because she wasn't putting herself into that category. That's definitely how I kind of saw it a little bit.
Well, I think you're right. Again, that kind of the wife thing. Yeah, I am his wife. And I think you don't necessarily want to blur the two, but they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, definitely. And caregiver, I think, is or supporter. I do like supporter, actually. I think that's a term we could coin a little bit. Yeah. So have you guys had to kind of make significant adjustments within your homes, within your circumstances, or it sounds like in some ways things have changed over time, but was there things that you had to do in the early stages?
Yes, certainly for me, I wasn't able to work for some time. I think I talked about, moving country and things, but I think for me that, returning to work after it was quite a few months, that was amazing. Well, I had to find a new job actually. So yeah, they were really significant changes. Moving house, we still live with my mom, so that's something that's, for the last 15 years, we don't have our own. I mean, we're so lucky to be here. It feels like an absolute blessing. But that's been a real change for us. So yeah, some big ones there.
As far as kind of like reasonable adjustments, obviously it sounds, I think Elizabeth mentioned kind of the OT side of things there. But was there things that you had to do adjustment wise within the home? Have you had to lay things out differently, set things up differently on that side?
Well, I think one of the things that happens now, and remember this is 15 years on, so things have changed over time, but routine has become very important. I'm not the best on routine, it has to be said, but that is actually very important for Hector now, and in fact, sometimes I find it frustrating because I find it constraining. But actually, I know that for him, it really helps in his navigating the house, his day, and being clear about plans, being clear about communication, um, and giving enough time for things. I think that's one of the biggest adjustments that actually we need to put in that extra time if we're going to go out of the house, have any kind of planned activity. There's a bit less flexibility, I guess, or more planning, which of course is good. Good for me to do that too. But yeah, I think that spontaneity almost is can be quite anxiety provoking, I think. that's something that we have. So I think together we plan, more. And
So adjustments we've made, like in terms of adjustments to the house or anything like that, we've not had to do anything. He's managed to re-navigate the house, and actually we moved after his brain injury as well, which was particularly stressful and he did struggle with. But I think it's more of, and I don't, Julia will probably agree with this, it's kind of the dynamics. It's actually having to adjust a bit to the family dynamics and how you deal with Paul and how we deal together as a family. And we're really still learning all of this, to be honest. And it's changing as the girls are getting older. And the younger one doesn't remember her dad as before his stroke. So this is, she was 1 coming up to 2 when it happened. So she does get frustrated. I think my older daughter is a lot more understanding. She knows what her daddy was like. She understands kind of what's happened, and she's quite good at helping him as well. It's really sweet to see, actually.
Have you found has there been some changes as far as Hector's concerned? Elizabeth was mentioning some kind of differences as far as behaviour and personality and temper loss. Is that something that's happened for Hector as well as the kind of the physical differences and the ability differences?
Well, I certainly think that, particularly when the children were younger and Hector was, nearer the point of having had his brain hemorrhage, that his fuse was a lot shorter. I think over the years, there is still some of that, but I think he's gained more patience now. And I think he's come to terms with his new self, which has helped that. And I think he does understand his limitations and works within those to do the best that he can, which is what I always find so inspiring about, him getting up every morning and having a go at life with everything he's got. So, yeah, but I undoubtedly there are frustrations with the things that he can't do and having to rely on people as well. And, for a long time he couldn't drive because of seizures and I think that loss of independence is deeply frustrating, especially for a young man and, a family man too, not being able to take the kids or engage in some of the things. And I think it was hard when our son was learning to read because of some of Hector's difficulties with reading. And some of that, I think, throws into sharp relief the loss for him as well, because he was very well-educated, erudite, fluent man before, enjoyed reading and very widely read. And so to not be able to do that now is a great sadness for him. Although he does like listening to podcasts, so that's good.
Was he part of the inspiration?
Yes. And
Yeah.
I think, it's amazing with technology now as well, isn't it? Being able to use, even just with texting, using a voice recorder that types things. I mean, that's hugely useful. So especially with memory difficulties and executive functioning, to be able to then see, say a sentence and then see it written for you in a format that he might struggle to type himself is fantastic.
Oh yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, the just that little thing we take for granted, but actually could be a huge benefit for somebody based
Massively,
on that change,
yes.
that
And
difference. Yeah,
that's still recent. That wasn't something we were doing 15 years ago.
no,
We didn't have smartphones then, so
no, couldn't just carry it around with you. I'm sure the technology was there, but it would have been the size of a room.
not quite that long ago, Andy.
No.
We're not quite that old. Careful.
I should probably get Paul to use that function a bit more, because he struggles a bit, actually, particularly when he's trying to do an email. He'll write it and it's doesn't always make sense. And I'm like, reread it. But if he's able to kind of say it, then that could be beneficial
It's really,
for him,
really
actually.
helpful. Really helpful.
If you could go back, what's kind of the one thing that you wish you'd known back when your journey started that you know now?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I guess I wish I had known more about all of the support that's available and the range of different organisations that there are and the great work that they do. But also, I think just that kind of wider understanding of disability that so many people face and touches so many people's lives in all different ways and for all different reasons, and that it's a big community of people that I think, unless there is some lived experience of that, people have very little understanding of what some of that means. And I think I wish I had more insight into that, because of course one doesn't need to have the lived experience to know more. And I think it's all of our responsibilities to understand different people's experiences of life, and that sometimes includes disability and impairment. And yeah, I think that would have been a good thing to know.
That it's going to take time. And everybody kept saying at the time, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but you don't want to believe that. And Paul didn't want to believe that. He was like, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better. And he was really determined. And I think that determination has absolutely put him in good stead. But things will change. And like I say, it didn't really hit me till 3 years in. And then I feel we're in a very different place now, 3 years on from that. So persevere, have the patience and the hope and belief that things are going to get better with work and support and assistance.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much. I think what we might do after we've kind of closed at the episode, if you guys do have some specific support groups and things like that that you think have been really beneficial for you, that you found, you mentioned Headway there, so we'll try and make sure we put a link to Headway within the show notes, within the comments as well. But any that you've got, then please, ping them over in an email to me, and we'll try to make sure they're flagged with the episode at the same time. Because, as you said, it's not always easy to kind of know what to look for, where to look, knowing what's available and stuff like that. So if we can help people out on that front, that'd be really positive. But otherwise, we could just say go and listen to On a Good Day, available on all podcast forums. And are you on YouTube as well?
We're not at the moment, no. I keep promising to upload it all, but I just haven't got around to it, and amongst everything else. Not at the moment, so potentially in the future.
So where are the videos at the moment then? Where do you post those videos?
They're mainly socials. So yeah, you can visit us at onagood.day. Is it hang on, now I'm forgetting.
Onagood.day.
Onagood.day on Instagram, and then onagood_day on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page, but I'm sure you'll be putting all of this in your show notes, Andy. But generally, I'm pretty good on Instagram. So if people want to message there, or on our Facebook group, if people have questions or want to join in that community chat, then absolutely do that. And we can answer any questions.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. I think there's so much other stuff we could talk about, and I think for me, one of the things that I love doing, and Julia mentioned it there, as far as having a deeper knowledge and understanding. And I think whether you are a paid or an unpaid caregiver, the more you understand about the brain, or how whatever ways the brain's been affected might affect the individual, and how you can support that. It's not it's we need to find a way round, I think is really kind of useful and worthwhile knowing about. So maybe we'll have to do this another time. But as I said, go and check out On a Good Day and listen in. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for inviting us on, Andy. It's been a pleasure.